Hey there, I'm Yasmin, just average 31-year-old homemaker. My story, well, it all started when I met John, my husband, through a friend's introduction. After a year of dating, we decided to tie the knot, both dreaming of having children to fill our home with laughter and love. But as time passed, our dreams of parenthood seemed elusive. Despite our yearning for little ones running around the house, we weren't blessed with any children. It was a bit disheartening, I must admit. Yet, our marriage remained strong, with our inability to conceive being the only bump in the road. Thankfully, I had a great rapport with John's parents, which made our journey a bit easier. One evening, my parents were scheduled to visit, and John proposed we all go out for dinner together. It was a thoughtful gesture, one that warmed my heart amidst our struggles. As the years passed without any signs of a growing family, doubts began to creep in. Maybe there was something wrong with me. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and explore fertility treatments in hopes of making our dreams a reality. But there were no visible results. I heard there are many reasons for infertility, and we didn't know why we couldn't have children. The journey with no end in sight was exhausting. I was beginning to dread going to the hospital to face no progress and was thinking of giving up on fertility treatments. But then my mother-in-law reached out to help. She had undergone fertility treatments to conceive my husband, so she understood my feelings the best. She comforted me over the phone after my hospital visits. The treatments were costly and unproductive, and she probably sensed my despair from my voice. Until a year ago, she was a stranger to me, but I was grateful for her kindness. With her support, I kept going with the treatments. Before entering the restaurant, I whispered a thank you to my mother-in-law, who smiled back warmly. I was glad they were my in-laws and enjoyed the dinner as a stress reliever from my fertility treatment. Then my husband had to go on a business trip, and we had to pause our efforts to conceive. I heard that continuity is important in fertility treatments, so I was disappointed. But work is work. Maybe taking a break from the stress of trying to conceive would help me recover mentally. I tried to see the positive side. Even after he left, my mother-in-law visited me weekly to take care of my mental health. She was the only one I could talk to about the hardships of fertility treatments and the loneliness of being apart from my husband. Thanks to my mother-in-law, I didn't have to feel that bad. Half a year flew by, and my husband's business trip ended. I was feeling much better mentally and knew I had to refocus on getting pregnant soon due to my age. No way. Yes? Why are you shouting all of a sudden? What happened? I'm pregnant. Our baby is finally coming. Seeing the 2 lines on the pregnancy test, I cried tears of joy. It had been a long-awaited pregnancy. We had overcome periods of anxiety and unsuccessful fertility treatments. I was overwhelmed with happiness, but my husband just gave a strange smile. Maybe he's not happy. No, that can't be the case. Perhaps he was just shocked and needed time to process the news. I shared the joy openly and immediately informed my parents and his. Both sets of parents were overjoyed, and I was too excited to sleep that night. I decided to focus on a healthy pregnancy. But the next day, I assume you know, but I'm busy with work, so I can't help much around the house duties. Don't bother me too much, okay? Sorry, I'll cook tomorrow. There's no tomorrow for someone who can't do it today. He must be stressed out because he is tired from work. I felt guilty for not being able to meet his expectations for housework and meals due to my severe morning sickness in my first pregnancy. But morning sickness won't last forever. Once it eases, I should be able to do more around the house, and hopefully our relationship will get back to normal, I thought. I can't just be soft on myself, especially for our upcoming child and my husband, who's always working hard. I pushed myself to cook and do housework as much as possible, even with the morning sickness. but it seems my efforts didn't reach him. Gradually, he stopped coming home at night and began spending his evenings out. My hormonal imbalances from the pregnancy made me feel mentally unstable. I worried if we couldn't resolve our issues before the baby's birth, could we really build a happy family of 3? Such anxieties continued on the nights he was absent. But as I struggled through each day, I suddenly found myself in the 7th month of pregnancy and decided to return to my parents' house. I had already discussed this with them and my husband. Honestly, I felt more at ease going back to my parents' house than staying with my husband. Perhaps feeling suffocated living with a pregnant wife, my husband readily agreed to my going back home. I took a 2-hour taxi ride to my parents' house. "Don't worry, we'll support you from now on," I had told my mother weeks before about the deteriorating relationship with my husband, John. While admitting he was busy with work, I also vented my frustration about him not supporting me much. So my mother had been worried about me. And since returning home, I've been able to relax truly, even managing to spend days without a single worry. It was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. I regretted not returning home sooner. The comfort at my parents' house was so good that I gave birth to a boy without any issues. He was slightly underweight but cried loudly and felt warm when I held him, bringing me to tears of indescribable joy. Busy with work, John couldn't be there for the birth, but my parents cried with me. Despite the hard times during the pregnancy, I was truly glad to have overcome them. I stayed in the hospital for a week after giving birth, with my parents visiting daily. However, John was noticeably absent. He congratulated me on the birth, but didn't come to see our baby. Though I understood he was busy, I couldn't help feeling angry. Was his work more important than his child? But the excitement of spending days with my son overrode these feelings. That week felt incredibly long, but finally leaving the hospital with my baby made me truly feel like a mother. Hello, I was discharged from the hospital today. Though I had informed her by email, I called my mother-in-law to talk. She had supported me the most until I got pregnant, and I really wanted her to be the first to see her grandson. But since she lived far from my parents' house, I planned to show her the baby once things settled down. "John told me that you too are getting a divorce. Is that true?" "What?" Instead of congratulations, she hit me with this shocking news that couldn't be true. Although John and I had been on bad terms before the birth, it wasn't to the extent of divorce. It was just stress on both sides, and now was an important time to care for our son together. I had no idea why she would say such a thing, but I firmly responded, "That's ridiculous. Please don't say such things." "No, I'm serious." She then explained that John indeed intended to divorce me. At first, I thought it was a cruel joke, but my kind-hearted mother-in-law wouldn't do such a thing. Her words seemed far-fetched, but not impossible. I calmed myself and decided to contact John. My heart raced and my body trembled as I dialed his number, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. "Oh, you heard already?" "Well, that's right. I can't live with someone who cheats with another man and has his child." "A woman who cheats with another man?" My husband, John, was under the misconception that I had an affair behind his back and gave birth to the other man's child. This was what I heard from my mother-in-law. It turned out that while I was away giving birth at my parents' house, John had been telling his parents that I was having an affair. I didn't know when he started to misunderstand, but his cold attitude towards me during my pregnancy and his absence at the birth were because of this reason. But did John really think I was cheating, or was there some other reason he wanted a divorce? I couldn't tell, but I knew I had to talk to him in person, so I decided to return to our house a month after returning to my parents. "I'm home, huh? Why did you come back?" "I told you, you have no place in this house." It seemed John hadn't got my message about coming home today. Perhaps he had blocked my number. Well, it didn't matter to someone who was considering divorce. I wasn't surprised by his cold reception. I continued calmly without losing my composure. Do you really intend to divorce me? There's no proof I cheated. I know you've been cheating. Plus, I've already moved my parents out and got rid of your stuff. This house is mine now. John bragged with a smirk, heading to the living room. Following him, I saw my father-in-law and mother-in-law sitting at the dining table, and John grinning, holding the divorce papers. If we are to divorce, this house is mine since I got it from my parents. You should be the one leaving. That's ridiculous. You cheated, so I'm taking this house as alimony. It's 3 against 1 here. You don't stand a chance. I hadn't done anything to be suspected of cheating. Seeing John's smirking face, I realized everything. He was framing me. Thinking he had convinced his parents to be on his side was his downfall. He thought he had won over his parents, but he underestimated people. Without evidence, why would they believe his word? I had shared many concerns with my mother-in-law and built a strong relationship. Underestimating this was his downfall. After hanging up with John, I called his parents again. I shared what John had said and reiterated that I hadn't cheated. They then became my allies, confessing they had found John's recent actions suspicious. He had suddenly claimed I cheated and that he would take the house, suggesting they lived together. They had been living in a rental, so living with John in a house would be financially beneficial. They suspected John was trying to leverage this to take the house from me. He might be clever in a way, but careless in the end. And his parents, who knew him best, wouldn't be easily fooled. At this point, it was already decided that my in-laws and I would outsmart John. But one thing was still unclear. Why had John suddenly started this? Our long-awaited child was born, and everything should have been perfect. What happened to him? I didn't have the answer yet. Stop pinning your affair on others. We're leaving this house, so prepare for alimony and child support. Wait, Mom, what are you talking about? An affair? John and I were both shocked by my mother-in-law's words. He was having an affair. What did that mean? Maybe because he cheated on me, I got in the way and he was trying to kick me out. Was he trying to get rid of me to take the house I got from my parents? That's beyond despicable. He's trying to ruin my and my son's life and take a significant asset. Ridiculous. Do you think you can get away with this? Wait, I haven't cheated. Just yesterday, a private investigator gave us the findings. They were supposed to report back in a week, but they had more than enough evidence already, my father-in-law said, pulling out a large envelope from his bag. It contained several photos and a report, about 20 pages long, stapled together. The first page read, "Investigation results of infidelity," with attached photos of John holding hands with a young woman. Disgusting, I glared at John, seeing him now as nothing more than a base creature driven by his desires. He seemed like nothing more than a creature driven recklessly by his own desires, less than an animal. I was speechless, but upon closely examining the photos, there were some capturing the moment he entered a hotel. Despite just having a child, it was apparent he had no awareness as a father. My feelings shifted from anger to utter disbelief. Had I really spent 3 years with such a worthless person? This is over now. How are you going to excuse yourself? No, this is where your responsibility as a father comes in. You knew our marriage wasn't just about us anymore after I got pregnant. It was a momentary lapse. I'm truly sorry. There's no way a person who strays so easily can be a fit father. Don't joke around. My rage, which had subsided for a moment, returned in full force as my husband tried to make excuses. I let out all my pent-up anger, slamming the table and yelling at John, who must have been frightened by the sight of me. For the first time, he seemed frightened by this new side of me, backing away a couple of steps, hiding the divorce papers behind him. What are you hiding? Just because you're in a bad spot now doesn't mean you can back out of the divorce. I'll grant your wish and ask for child support. No, wait. It's better than being a single parent. Enough. I'd rather raise him alone than have someone like you around. He was clearly using the child as a shield now that he felt threatened. Despicable. I wouldn't let such a man claim fatherhood. My anger escalated to the point where I was almost about to lash out physically. We're sorry for the trouble. There's no need to get more upset. We'll take responsibility for our disgraceful son and ensure he pays child support. We'll make him leave the house today and handle the rest. I managed to stop myself, thanks to my in-laws' intervention. I contacted a lawyer regarding divorce procedure. In front of him, he nervously looked at me. Within an hour, his belongings were packed, and he left with his parents for his new residence. Left alone in the room, I felt a sense of loss for a while, trying to calm my mind. But gradually, I started to feel relieved about the outcome. If such a man had a hand in raising my beloved son, he might have turned out as terrible as him. It was a relief that I could prevent it at an early stage. Moreover, having my in-laws on my side until the end was a stroke of luck. I felt a bit guilty about burdening them with their despicable son, but my son was my priority. They understood and took him away, for which I was immensely grateful. I immediately asked the lawyer to proceed with our divorce. Then I decided to sell the house. My ex-husband knew its location, and I couldn't risk him showing up in a fit of vengeance. Being alone with my son, I wouldn't stand a chance if my ex-husband tried something. I also wanted to erase all memories associated with him. The house, initially bought as an investment by my father, was in a prime location and sold quickly. With that money, I could live comfortably without working for a while. My plan is to stay with my parents, benefiting from their support while raising my son, at least until he's a bit older. Eventually, due to school considerations, I intend to move to the city. But that's a conversation for the future. For now, I'm focused on settling our current situation. My ex-husband, under his parents' supervision, is working hard to pay me, with his wages being managed by them. I've been meeting with my in-laws every 6 months to show them their grandchild. And during our last meeting, they told me something astonishing. What? His affair partner was someone from his company? I thought he met her at a nightclub or something. Yes, that's right. We were just as shocked. It seems like it got out at the company because it was an office affair. He got fired. Now he's working at a factory owned by an acquaintance. He had a somewhat senior position, so he was pretty down after getting fired, but that's irrelevant to us. I never imagined his affair partner was a junior at his workplace. It's appalling to think that someone in a leadership position could behave like that. It's clear why such a person could easily betray me and our son. After getting fired, my ex-husband, John, also seems to have been cut off by his affair partner. While she's also to blame, it's understandable if she resents John for getting fired. However, unlike John, she's young and has a chance to start over. My ex-husband, who is old enough, had no choice but to work at a factory that was acquainted with his parents-in-law. He's now working at a factory with his wages being managed by his parents. They've arranged to pay child support in installments since his living expenses are covered by his parents. Most of his salary goes to me. But what he'll do after that is anyone's guess. It's unlikely that a divorced man with no savings will remarry, and he can't even live with his child he once so desperately wanted. With no goals or purpose in life, it's clear he'll spend the rest of his days filled with regret, a fate he brought upon himself. I think he should feel the mistakes he's made throughout his life and regret it forever. A year has passed since then, and I'm still living with my parents, cherishing my son. Next week, we have our biannual dinner with my in-laws. We maintain a good relationship, and they always look forward to seeing their grandson. Despite my ex-husband being the worst, I want to keep a good relationship with my in-laws. In life, it's crucial to have people who care about you and whom you genuinely value. As for people like my ex-husband who fit into neither category, it's best to cut ties.